There has always been a question of just how much power does someone like Rupert Murdoch have over our political leaders? Remember, Rupert Murdoch is probably one of the most powerful media barons in the world. And time again, there have been questions raised. Just how much power does someone like him have over our political institutions when he has been heard bragging that he was the one who got so and so elected? It's very, very worrying that individuals like that with an agenda have so much power, and something that should be heavily looked at. But interestingly enough, there has been a new book come out recently, and according to this new book, Sunak was on the edge of resigning. He was going to quit because of the Partygate allegations that were going on. Now, we know Sunak got caught up in Partygate as well. Hasn't really affected him as much as someone like Boris Johnson, but it is highly likely that come the general election, that is going to be a criticism that gets brought up against him. Bear in mind, there's, to be honest, a lot of other criticisms you can bring against Sunak, namely oh yes, we took money away from those poor areas and gave it to the more wealthy areas. Like I say, please play that on repeat. Just put that in every single social media feed out there on the land. Have that played constantly, especially in the Red Wall, in all these poor areas. Make all those Red Wall MPs, especially the Tory Red Wall MPs, try and answer that fact. Where they have been promised that don't worry, guys, the leveling up money is coming any day now. Trust us, it's on its way. We won't leave you behind. This led to, you may remember, a couple of weeks ago, covering one Conservative who was trying to brag, saying that, oh, we've managed to win this one local by-election where we managed to hold on just barely to a local councillor seat. Oh my God, guys, we're winning. We're winning in South Yorkshire. Meanwhile, South Yorkshire awash with local Labour councils and councillors. Yes, we're winning, guys. We're winning. He says, looking at the map constantly of red. But back to this, because I think this does raise questions of how powerful, once again, is Rupert Murdoch in our political sphere, and of course, how much should Partygate, or at least Labour, go after Rishi Sunak for Partygate 4? Now, don't get me wrong, I think there is some political advantageous statements that Labour could go after Rishi Sunak for in and around Partygate, but to be honest, there's far more stuff. The whole concrete crisis at the moment, that is a scandal that Rishi Sunak has his fingerprints all over. And while Partygate was very much a Boris Johnson scandal, I think it will be difficult to make the British public see that it's also a Rishi Sunak scandal as well. I think it's far too much associated with Boris Johnson. Don't get me wrong, bring it up by all means, but don't make it be the main thing you go after Rishi Sunak for. Like I say, the concrete crisis, the rack scandal that we're having at the moment, far more better to go after him for on that. And of course, the video of him saying, taking funding away from poor areas and giving it to richer areas. Again, Robin Rishi, taking money from the poor and giving it to the rich. That is a far more accurate statement. Of course, the whole concrete crisis. Well, look, Rishi Sunak gave money to bankers than he did to care about your child's safety in schools. And of course, as we are finding out, not just in schools, but in hospitals and potentially prisons and all kinds of buildings as well. Like I say, that crisis does indeed continue to crumble on. But let's look at this, because I think this is well worth bringing up and a fair point and valid question to ask. Just how much influence does Murdoch have over someone like Rishi Sunak? So, before we do go getting into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, please do remember to leave a link down below. There is the Patreon page. There's one donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There's the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there is the Pony Club as well. So let's get into this. This comes from The Guardian with the title of Murdoch Executives Told Sunak Not to Resign After Partygate Fine. So Rishi Sunak was persuaded not to quit as Chancellor over his fine for breaking lockdown laws after an intervention by executives working for media mogul Rupert Murdoch, it has been claimed. This claim is detailed in a book by the Telegraph's political editor, Ben Riley Smith, and published by the newspaper's website on Friday. It was the latest report to suggest that Sunak was on the verge of resigning after he and Boris Johnson were fined in April of 2022 for attending the then Prime Minister's birthday celebrations in Downing Street in June of 2020. According to the paper, Sunak had shared a draft resignation statement with allies, including some who worked for Murdoch as the former Tory leader, the Times columnist Lord Haig. It also reported that Sunak's potential resignation was discussed with Mas Sukudi, an old friend and director at Murdoch's News Corp. But the paper said that it had no knowledge if a message was passed directly from Sunak to Sunak from Murdoch. Johnson has obviously since told people that Murdoch had intervened to persuade Sunak not to quit. It was also claimed. The spokesperson for News UK declined to comment, while a spokesperson for Johnson also said that he did not recognize the account. So, what really went on here? We don't know. But the fact that this is being reported, that this is becoming maybe a thing, who knows? We need more information. Like I say, if there was that smoking gun of that message between Murdoch and Sunak, that would be definitely the smoking gun in the connection that we're looking for. Whether or not this, of course, exists or not, we don't know. And of course, a number 10 source said that Sunak did not speak to Murdoch at any time about resigning. Sunak did come under pressure over, of course, if he would resign after that fixed penalty notice was issued in April. He reported that he spent hours agonizing over the weight of resigning, but ultimately decided to stay in Downing Street along with Johnson. Sunak, of course, would then quit as Chancellor only months later, with his resignation helping to spark the mass ministerial walkout that eventually forced Johnson from number 10. So, how much power does Murdoch have over Rishi Sunak? Unfortunately, because we don't have that smoking gun yet, we don't know, of course. Number 10, Sunak, Rishi, and currently even Johnson deny those allegations because it is something that has been reported multiple times how much power Murdoch has over the Conservative Party over numerous things, supposedly having dossiers on them all of scandals ready to run at a moment's notice. Again, how true all that, whether or not is, we still don't know, but it is something that should be highly concerning to us. As you know, if you are interested in the British political media, I think there should be questions raised just how powerful the individuals are and what power they have over the UK press. And of course, what can we do about it? A question that's been asked, to be honest, not just now, but for years when we've asked this question. How can we free it from the influence? Should, for example, someone like Rupert Murdoch, who owns multiple media outlets, be allowed to own UK media assets in the way that he does? Like I say, someone who heavily pushes to privatize, of course, things like the BBC, because ultimately he would be the main buyer. And I've said this before, anyone who buys the BBC ultimately would be buying it for its influence. The BBC is a well-known brand and news reporter around the world, not just the BBC brand here in the UK, but the BBC World Service abroad. Very influential. Very influential. And that's ultimately, if it did go private, what someone like Murdoch would buy it for. That influential name and the power that it would bring, and the stuff they could put out through that brand alone. It would be very, very damaging. That's why we must always ensure to keep that the BBC is paid for through that license fee. So, yeah, definitely big questions should be raised. Definitely something that we have to keep our eye on, whether this will ferment further. Of course, it will be interesting to see those communications if they do exist. But at the moment, we don't know. We don't know, but it's something we do need, certainly, to keep an eye on. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all, oh, pardon me, next time.